Oh,
Okay, everyone's got it. So welcome to season 3, episode 10 of Warwick Zoom Garden Plot. And we're going to show our agenda for the evening. We got the Common Ground Community Garden, which is ours in Greenwood Lake. Leslie's garden, she said she had a meeting, so we'll just show her pretty pictures, announcements, and then we'll do a question and answer. And again, feel free to send any questions you want. Michael said he had one that he didn't upload. And we're going to start with, I'm not a great picture taker. I wish I was a better picture taker, but I can't seem to do those Instagram worthy pictures where you really get beautiful. So this is a big overview, right? You know, it's a little late in the season, but it's funny. I would say the theme of our garden this year was squash. I went squash crazy because last year last year was the first year we started our community garden. And we didn't get any cucumbers or squash. And I was like, I'm getting squash this year. I was very obsessed. So, but it's nice. I did plant rows, but I really focused. I did a very heavy, intensive planting, like, kind of, almost permaculture techniques of, I have things growing very closely together, squash with growing over tomatoes, growing over sweet potatoes, kale. So I don't know if you could get a good view, but many different types of squash and melon.
I'm just going to give a shout out here, a little explanation to the guests tonight that, he said they started this garden last year. So like you see that fence around there, even that fence wasn't built. This was nothing. This was grass a year ago in the spring of 2021. And here we are in the fall of 2022, and they're at their second season. That's full of a lot of food.
Yeah, and thank you. Sustainable Warwick was very helpful. But yeah, but it's really, so we used, the method we used was we used cardboard. We covered, the reason we got this lot is because it's a high water table and you can't grow anything, nothing can build on it. So I smothered all the grass with 10,000 pieces of cardboard. The mayor was nice enough to bring loads and loads of wood chips. We layered up, 5-6 inches of it. Another member of Sustainable Warwick, Bill Green, gave us a whole bunch of beautiful soil and a few other sources, and we just made these mounds. And yeah, even last year we produced that, but this year I really wanted to be much more productive. We're a shared garden. We follow Sarah. I pretty much copied her book on how to join the garden word for word. But other pictures, and this year and also the mayor wanted to make a point that the outside of the garden should be open to the public and available to the public. So this other shot is the front of the garden, and we had like Michael mentioned previously, my strong suit is growing food and edibles, and I'm all into functionality, and that's my whole thing. And I know almost nothing about pollinators. I was very remiss. And we had this woman, Sonia Mason, who joined up. We started this Warwick Valley Pollinator Pathways, and she really came on and planted just beautiful native pollinators, and they're all growing beautifully up front. And they're attractive. They're bringing, obviously, hopefully. And then I don't know if you could see it. There's a little sign on top, a little circle. I don't know if you could point that, Christy. That's
you're gonna see that.
Right. Yeah. We ordered a pollinator pathway sign that you could get from, there's like a whole pollinator pathway movement. So, we want to try to encourage people to, buy those signs and put them up, and then Christy's also created a wonderful website that you could then, put we want to have a map. So we're showing all the different people that are having pollinator pathways. The other picture is an herb spiral, which is also, a very permaculture design project. This is out in the open area. So the critters have not attacked this, but we had a bunch of extra stones and rocks. And again, I just piled some straw, soil, and we made a little mound, and we just planted, herbs around it. And it's growing really, it's, I guess the whole point is to grow a lot in a small space, because I guess if you stretch that herb spiral out, lengthwise, it would be, 40-50 feet, but you could fit that all in a 6-7 foot space. So that's growing very nicely. You can show the next slide, and here's a little picture of some of our harvests. We grew potatoes in buckets. We didn't, we got about 30, 40. It was, that's a project we did with the Girl Scouts, which was, they seem to enjoy that. And we got beans, tomatoes, a lot of different peppers, many different, there's a banana peppers. And
Chad, what was the reason for doing them in buckets?
I guess I just, I guess we put the sweet potato, I guess starting out, I didn't want to know how many mounds I wanted to just give into, a potato. And so we kind of thought of this even a little late in the game, to be honest with you, after the mounds are done. So we figured, well, let's try it in buckets. And they did grow fairly well. So I'll figure out better what to do with, if you have 15 rows, like what's worthy. I'm trying to do really focus on food that people could take home, and like tomatoes, squash. Last year I did a little bit more subtle type of herbs, and they're just like, I don't they don't know what to do with them. Parsley, like they weren't too excited to snip a lot of parsley and stuff, even though we do have that. But I think it's good for a community garden that people could go home with, set
It's
things.
funny, parsley's like a big draw at our garden.
Oh, see, yeah, no, I'm the only one who takes parsley.
Huh, interesting.
And here's just a different angle. I put all the kale and broccoli and stuff in one bed. We know it's all getting killed now by the critters, that one little bed. But I did have it covered most of the season with a white cloth to protect it a bit. And I don't know if you can see in the back, we have sweet potatoes that Sarah she did a really great workshop on planting the sweet potatoes. And we're going to harvest them. Not now. And on the row, on this last row we have here, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on some perennial vegetables. Like I planted artichoke and Turkish rocket. I tasted that. I don't know how well good that tastes. But also other pollen, like this soil we got doesn't seem to be the great, it's tested fine, but it doesn't seem to grow things that well. So I figured I'm just going to try to put more. And then we have beans growing up the side, not to the level of Sarah's beans, but we have a few. And the sunflowers, they were doing really good, but that heat just they just dried right up. They were like flourishing, beautiful sunflowers, and it looks like the heat wave here just got the better of them eventually, and they kind of plopped out.
Chad, don't feel bad. Last year we had that huge bean
that
harvest, and in the spring, I still had the huge pea thing going on. But by the time we took that out and put the beans in, the beans barely grew this year. It's the water. It really, after that rain we got, we started getting some beans producing, but it was like very little this year. So don't feel bad.
Okay, thank you.
As they say, been there, done that.
Yeah.
Oh, see, he's on full. So yeah, again, just different angles, and I try to use the fence as a trellis as much as I could. Let things grow up. Like I did, I planted a second growing of peas, but nothing really grew too well. Like snap peas, they didn't grow. And this is this was like a crazy melon we grew. That last picture, I got the name, but I've never seen a melon like that before. I don't even know.
It's not a winter squash?
No, it was like I swore it was a squash all along. Then last week it just like turned like all like the orange color, and it's almost like a giant cantaloupe. And we did
Weird.
The name of it, and it was pretty tasty. It was like a weaker tasting cantaloupe. See, Sarah's really good. I have to say, I started out good, but I have not tracked any possible thing that after a while I planted so many different types of tomatoes and peppers, and then you go to, and I went to Corin's and bought some, and now I did not track anything. So I kind of know when it comes up, but I just lost track.
Next year.
That's not my strong suit. If someone would join to be, I get organized early on, then as it goes on, I just lose my organizational ability. So I cannot say that I could say what's on what bed. I guess Sarah does that, and I give her credit. So I think that's it for my yes. And
Yeah.
Hold it. Before we go on, I've just popped into the chat
Yes,
That's
sir.
a link to the pollinator pathway on Sustainable Warwick's website. So Susan and Wendy and Jay, if you want to just check out that has said more details about what the pollinator pathway is all about. Basically, they encourage people to plant native plants in their yards so that people can so that pollinators have a chance.
Mhm.
But there's a pollinator pathway throughout New York, and Sustainable Warwick is trying to get a section of it going here in Warwick. Back to you, Chad.
Okay, and this is Leslie. She was going to join us tonight, but she said she got called away by a meeting. And Leslie is a big promoter. She has this little keyhole garden bed, which I guess it's just a cool thing where she I guess throws compost into kind of directly into her garden bed, and it seems to break down. It seems to be working very well for her. So I guess she's showing us how beautiful peppers. And I see that's a melon and
Cauliflower?
Cauliflower.
I don't know what that is.
Cauliflower.
But
Yeah.
it looks kind of fuzzy though.
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
it?
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like
I
I never, I've tried cauliflower and Brussels sprout. I found them not to be worth it.
No, I agree.
By the time you grow, even if you grow one, it took so many months and to fight off all the worms and stuff. You could just go buy cauliflower.
And they take up a
Pretty
lot
well.
of room with
Right,
all
they
the
take up a lot of
foliage.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just found that it wasn't worth the.
They're not really conducive to a community garden. To have them in your own garden where you get two heads, but when you're trying to feed, 15,
Yeah, exactly.
20 people, you have to edit your
Exactly.
assortment.
Is that the same? Do you feel the same way about broccoli?
Yes,
Yeah.
takes those little white moths attached. 'Cause one year,
Yeah.
one
The
year I
cabbage
put this
moths.
cabbage moths. One year we had a bed, we'd taken something out. So I got a whole lot of cauliflower and broccoli plants and put them in. And those cabbage moths just wiped them out. So after that, I said never again.
We have a lot of people grow the cabbage in their plots, and I rarely see a head of cabbage that doesn't have wormholes in it. It's
Yeah.
Exactly.
It takes too long and it's not.
Yeah.
And broccoli sometimes I grow. You get a few heads, and I think I harvest the green leaves. But yeah, cabbage and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts are not worth it. And I guess that's melon. See what other pictures she sent.
That was all she had.
All right. Well, we could do the shimmy in place. We could demonstrate since we've been on for a while.
Sure.
What we usually do is step away, as Michael explained, and you could
Look
stay
at
in
that!
front of
Look
the
at that
computer.
action on the screen.
Oh, see,
Shimmy in place.
She animated it for us. Which is
Really.
great.
So everybody, you got to stand up now. You got to stand up and do something. Well, except
so
for
you
you, Mark.
shake it
Do you
out.
keep driving, Mark?
Yeah,
no,
please,
I'm
Mark.
pulled over. I'm getting out of the car. I'm gonna do my shimmy.
Okay, we shimmied.
We shimmied.
Now, well, we do announcements, right? Then question and answer. Okay, we got a lot of announcements. By next month will be our last one, and again, this is the first time we've had no one come. It's a bad night for that to happen. We usually do get 10 to 12 people. We usually stop in October, so that'll be next month. And again, you guys are more than welcome to join us. Then Michael, you want to talk about this next one?
So the Hudson Valley Climate Solutions Week, there's a lot of things going on. This event, our open house was mentioned there because we think that if people can grow food on their own land and they're not relying on the industrial agricultural big ag industry, that it's a good thing for the climate and for the planet. But there are lots of other events going on there. And so if you're ever feeling depressed about what's happening with climate change, you might check out some of the climate solutions that are being talked about at hvclimatesolutions.org.
Okay, that sounds great. That's going on right now. And so that's, a lot of great events going on. Then we recently started with Warwick and Greenwood Lake and farmers markets that we're offering buckets for people to come and drop off food scraps. So we're hoping that really takes off. And then we're trying, that's another project I'm part of, hopefully finding places then to, either bring them to local farms or, different uses. But right now we're just hoping people bring their food scraps. And we're even looking into if any of the, we're going to start looking at farmers markets event, if they have like a lot of food that's still good, that they might not take back with them, donating that to food pantries. But that's a little more complicated. We got to figure out getting stuff around there. But, all different ways of, making sure nothing is wasted.
Actually, large food producers like the grocery stores, they are required to either donate or compost. They cannot be sending stuff to landfill. There's laws about this now that have just taken place in the last year.
That's a great point. Yep, I think they just passed that, right?
Yeah, it's gone into effect just this year or last year.
Right, and I'd be willing to bet a lot of people do not know this law exists, and I wonder how well they're following this law. But that that would really that's a major thing to say, that you guys cannot just send this to landfill. So where what are they doing with it? So that's an interesting thing to follow up on. I'll be doing a importance of local food presentation tomorrow. Well, probably Michael, you've already seen it, the one I did at the library, so you don't have to come. But let's learn about the impact local food has individually, locally, and globally. So that'll be another Zoom event. Because I'm part of a Grow Local Greenwood Lake, so we try to open up our meetings quarterly to the public. So hopefully people show up for that. I think that's it as far as announcements go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, any questions or you guys could ask other questions about the Zoom garden plot or gardening in general. Feel free. Well, Mike, you said you had one as well.
I've got a couple questions. One is serviceberry. Has anyone grown serviceberry?
No.
Yes. Is that another for aronia? I think that's the same berry, right?
I'm not sure. I've heard it's like a native plant, and it sort of grows like a big bush or something, and the fruit's not so bad.
Yes, I had a look. I mean, I've started out, but what is your exact question when it comes?
Has anybody grown it? My wife wants me to ask this question, and so I'm earning extra points by asking.
Well, I was growing it in my backyard. It was growing, but then I moved it to the community garden, and it hasn't really established yet. So I'm hopefully maybe next. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years to really go. So I can't. I am growing it, but I haven't had a lot of tasting.
Then another question I've got is, you talked about, I've heard of people like using cardboard like to smother grass so that they can start something else. Back in the back of, we have a 2-acre property. We're in Warwick, so we have 2 in the town. So we have 2, 3, 5-acre properties around here. And back in the back, there was this old horse shed, and the horse shed was falling down. But at the bottom of the horse shed was these aluminum sheets that are maybe 2 feet wide and 8 feet long. And I've got like 6 or 7 or 8 of them. And I'm wondering if I use those, so I've got a big open pasture back there. If I use that, to smother grass, would that be a good way to, stop the grass? And then I wanted to replant wildflowers or, replace lawn with something. Would that be an effective way to do that? Or
you mean you're going to leave it there temporarily, kill the grass, and then remove them to plant your wildflowers, right?
Right, I was gonna put them
Yeah.
down now and come back like next spring or something.
Yeah, yeah.
You could, right,
That would-
right. Obviously, you're not, with the cardboard, you could leave it and
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
grow through it, right? Aluminum, you would have to obviously move.
But yeah,
But
that
yeah,
would be
it
a
would,
great
it could
way.
definitely smother the grass.
Yeah, absolutely. It would
I would
smother.
suggest Chad did this, and we've done this, well, we did this in the orchard. We put in a new bed in the orchard because we had more room. And we didn't, this was decided last fall. And the idea of digging up this heavy sod was not appealing. So we put down the cardboard, and we have the luxury of having a friend with the town DPW who brought in a load of Warwick compost / mulch and dumped it there. So over the course of the winter, the cardboard pretty much disintegrated and we had the mulch there. And I can't remember if we added more or not. And we're doing this with another garden bed now that was our garden bed. The community center took it away and then they let it grow full of weeds and they gave it back again. So we're doing the same thing. And the point of this is I've put cardboard in areas at my house. The cardboard will suppress the weeds, but I found when spring comes, when you remove it, the weeds begin to grow back again. If you use, black plastic and solarize it, I think that will work, but I don't think you're going to get good success with metal panels because it's that extra weight and darkness of the dirt over the winter. I mean, weeds still came up, but it wasn't that huge
But
amount of weeds. And we
It,
didn't put many work into it other than moving the dirt around.
but if you can't seed over mulch, that wouldn't work. You'd have to put, because we a lot of people in our community garden use cardboard and they don't put enough. The problem with the cardboard is they don't put enough mulch down. So the cardboard dries up and then blows all over the garden, and they do it with newspaper. And in the springtime, it looks like Times Square. It's just newspaper and cardboard all over the fence, and it looks like. But if you're going to overseed it, then the mulch is not going to be a good bed to seed unless it's really, really, really composted mulch.
This isn't commercial mulch. This is something that exists at the town DPW because we have a town brush pile. And at one point they had a formula that made compost and now we call it compost mulch. So it's like kind of compost, kind of dirt. It's not a true mulch. We get chips to use for mulch. And we put down several inches of it. Homeowners tend to not put enough down. So
the aluminum will prevent it'll smother the weeds. But if you want to, Michael, if you want to solarize, I would use clear plastic because that'll heat that'll heat the soil up and it'll actually force the weeds to grow, and then it'll kill any weed seeds in there as long as you don't disturb the soil. If you don't disturb the soil, if you kill the grass and you don't disturb the soil, the weed seeds don't have a chance to germinate. Or you could, if you solarize, because you'll have all the weed seeds coming up, like it's almost like a mini greenhouse. They'll start to germinate, they'll come up, and then they'll die because of the heat. And then as long as you just don't disturb the soil and you overseed it, we did that in Worcester Grove. We put in a little pollinator patch and we used plastic, and I put a ton of seed down there. I probably put like 10 times as many seeds as was recommended. It just smothered the weeds. Like there was no competition. That's the other thing too. If you're going to use wildflowers, if it says use like a pound for every 1,000 square feet, I would use like 5 pounds. I would just overseed it to the point where it overwhelms any weed, and then let the plants fight it out amongst themselves. Does that make sense, or am I kind of not explaining it
Very
well
helpful.
enough?
Yep, sounds good.
But Sarah's right. When you take the panels off, any seeds that are there are going to germinate. So she's right about that. But
it's the
Maybe I could
really,
play.
the
Maybe I could play.
really bad wheat grasses. And once, you would have to do it for quite a while because the really heavy duty grasses with the rhizomes, they
Yeah.
pop right back up.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
edges, they're just gonna come in right at the edges. You'd have to almost
Mhm.
like edge it. So,
Right.
yeah,
Sounds like
Okay,
maybe you should just take a nap instead.
any other questions?
I just have one quick comment. Does anyone grow onions in their gardens? Or
Scallions, but not onions, because
'Cause-
Pine Island is there.
yeah, you guys have that luxury. I grow I guess it's the Polish in me. I grow onions a lot. I like to grow onions, and I've always had success with them. And this year had to be the best year for drying the onions, because when I pulled them in July, I just left them on top of the raised bed and they dried to, there was no moisture. And like in the past, if you let them dry, sometimes they'll get some rotting on them or something if you get some rain or moist soil. But this year it was so bone dry, they dried perfectly. I think I lost one out of maybe 100 onions to some rot. So, and they're I just I'm just saying, this year was a really good year for onions as far as just growing them, because we didn't really get that drought until well into their growth, and then it was perfect for drying them in the fields. Which is what I do. I just let them dry out, pull them out and let them dry out. So if anyone's up in
That's
my
very good to
area,
hear.
yeah, if
Yeah,
anyone's up in my
we're gonna
area
come to
and
get some
wants-
onions from you.
yeah, they may not be as good as yours in Pine Island, but I'll definitely share my onions with you.
We got garlic, but we didn't last year because our garlic bed was taken away from us, which is why we built this whole new bed. So garlic returns this year. It's fun to grow. It's not, there's not a lot of garlic around here, but sometimes we grow crops that are interesting for the members and they like the whole procedure, and we do it as a group. Like sweet potatoes and the garlic are kind of a fun experience.
You mentioned you have pawpaws coming out. I saw in one of your
Yeah, the
emails.
pawpaws, we're on pawpaw watch.
How many years have you had those trees?
Oh God, 10, 12.
Oh wow, and they're just coming now?
Well, in the past, we had small harvests here and there. And then I don't know what happened last year. The pawpaw situation was something that brought on, between wanting to put in a new bed and between the deer and squirrels, and we're pretty sure there are two-feeded critters in there, our crops were vanishing. So that's why we redid that, that fence. And fruit wasn't necessarily good, but those pawpaw trees are loaded this year. So they're not quite ready. They're getting close, but we have a lot of pawpaws coming.
Exciting.
Yeah. And our grapevines, we each got to eat one grape.
No wine?
Well, someone wanted to put in grapes, so we put in, I think, 6 grape vines. They're decent sized, and there's 3 or 4 different types of grapes. So one's a wine grapes, there's Concord grapes, and these really tasty red grapes, but only one produced grapes this year, which is pretty amazing. So everyone's excited. I think some more grapes are going in. And now there's a whole group that wants raspberries or blueberries. And I'm trying to steer them towards the idea of birds. Think about birds. And
Yeah, but they really spread. I wouldn't put raspberries anywhere near
no, I know.
beds that you want to use.
Oh no, we have a lot of room in the orchard. So many
So why not?
wide. But what? Getting people to understand that you can't just put in no one wants one grape. It's fun for one season,
Right.
but we have to put in a significant amount. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Well,
get them.
and then you realize when you go to a store, because we have a bunch of strawberries. We're trying to make that like ground cover.
Mhm.
And even at the best, you get like, 30, you could fill up like, 2 strawberry. So you realize that, when you go to ShopRite, that, they must have acres and acres of nothing but
I know.
strawberries or blueberries are great. Like these, you need such an amount to make it useful for a community garden. Like if everyone to eat a raspberry, you'd have
I
to
know,
have
I've been
a giant.
trying to get this idea across, but the enthusiasm's there, so we'll see what happens.
Sarah, we have blackberries and blueberries, and we have a small raspberry patch that isn't successful. But on the blueberries, we have 16 plants, 16 bushes, and somebody built a net for it that you can actually
Right.
stand in the blueberry area, maybe bend over if you're really tall, and you can get in there. And they install it as the berries, maybe a week before the berries start to ripen, and they keep it on there till the berries go. Without the net, they started doing this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Before that, we got very few blueberries because
Mhm.
the birds would come in and eat them. With the
Right.
net, we get a ton of blueberries, and everyone goes in there and picks them. And it works out pretty good. I mean, people can pick pints and pints with 16 plants, and we can get the pints and pints of blueberries. And as far as the blackberries, we have a big patch, and they're iffy. Sometimes we have bumper crops, and sometimes we don't have a very good year. But I would recommend, if you're going to go with the blackberries, just to do yourself a favor, get a thornless variety, so that, or you're going to be, people are going to be having those thorns sticking out of it. They're going to be unhappy. We have a thornless variety, so you can go into the bush and take out whatever you need. Because a lot of times you get these big bushes, and you got to kind of go in there to grab the blackberries, to really dig into the bush. And
Yeah, Mark, I grew up in a farm in Ohio. We had blackberry thickets, and
Yeah.
I know all about blackberries.
oh,
I'm trying to steer the group into one type of bush this year, rather than a bunch of little things all over the place. Maybe I'll get, Arnold is the orchard person, so maybe you're the community garden in Montgomery, right?
yeah, the blueberries do better than everything else. The blueberries are consistent, and with the netting, we always get a crop of blueberries. The blackberries are hit or miss. The
Yeah.
raspberries are mostly miss. In fact, almost always miss.
Mark, what kind of blueberries are they, and where
They
did you get your
have-
plants?
Right.
High bush blueberries, I don't know where we got the plants, because somebody else was doing it. I think they probably got it at a local nursery, maybe Manza's. They may sell them on Route 211, but they're high bush blueberries, and they're consistent. We always get a good crop of blueberries. It's just
I have to rave about high bush also. I had one in my yard when I lived in Walk Hill, so up close to you, Mark. And it produced so much that I shared it with the birds. I couldn't believe it. So,
many
and they were great.
yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah.
Just
How
a
many
reminder.
years before they produced?
I don't know.
Couple, they were there for the longest time when I got there. So, but we put new plants in, and they started producing maybe the next year or whatever. But they you got to give it a couple of years and let them get
No,
big.
I know.
Yeah. I would say like maybe 2-3 years.
Right.
2-3 years, and you'll really starting to see it when they get about 4 or 5 feet high, and they get like 3 feet wide, and then those nice big bushes.
Mhm.
They just produce a huge amount, and
Right.
and they're just, and we have all different varieties. I see some that are bigger fruited, and some are smaller fruited. Some ripen a little quicker than others. So I don't know who picked them, but they're definitely different varieties. It's not all the same variety. And
Yeah, I'm
again,
interested in this netting.
the netting, it was, we have a gardener whose husband is a woodworker. He's really good with woodworking, and he built this whole system. It was handmade, and they put it up every year, and they got an entrance with a net, so you got to lift it up almost like a screen that's at the bottom. It's I mean, I can take pictures and send them to you. Well, actually, I can't now because the net's down. But I could boy, I mean,
That would be terrific, because I've been telling them that they're going to have to consider infrastructure. Not just putting bushes in.
oh yeah, you definitely, it's
Right.
definitely, without the netting, you half of them are going to go to the birds, if not more.
Right.
You know something, if I recall, back in season 1, one of our participants, Jack McDevitt, showed pictures of his blueberry netting. And he has a special, I think he leaves his netting up all the year. He's not quite like a community garden. He's got a big yard, and so he sort of does what he wants. But he had I think there was some back in season 1, Jack McDevitt.
Okay.
You know, after the pandemic slowed down some, he had to go back to work. So he hasn't been coming to the Zoom garden plot, but I visited him once and I've seen his stuff. And if I recall, he also showed pictures once on Zoom garden plot. So
great.
So Susan and company, so on our website, Sustainable Warwick, we've got the Zoom garden plot page. And so all the videos are there. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
I looked at a couple of
Okay.
them.
So Sarah can go back to the earliest versions and maybe find that.
Can I ask you, how many people do both, 2 questions, both are focusing on flower gardening, native, perennials versus vegetables, or do you all do both?
in the Zoom garden plot, we emphasize vegetables. We're vegetable gardeners. It's just that vegetable gardeners tend to, on the side, they want other plants around their yard that are nice.
Right.
What's the name of the book, Doug Tallamy?
Nature's Best Hope.
Nature's Best Hope. Yeah. Everybody read this book and then decided, oh gosh, we should be planting more native plants.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Doug Tallamy or not, but it's a nice, it's a good book.
Yeah, Susan, yeah, so we separate, right? The Zoom garden plot definitely focuses more on growing, but then, we also started a Warwick Valley Pollinator Pathway group.
Right.
That's just focused on native pollinators, because it seems to be all right.
Sure.
Like I think all of us have some obviously pollinators, and some people can handle both, but it does seem like it's almost 2 different type of people that grow different, the pollinators or the, just, edible food stuff.
Yeah, actually, Susan, it's been a long haul. We had a big herb area with a lot of mint that took over, but then we realized that this mint area that took over has the most amazing collection of bees and native bees you've ever seen. Plus, our members, we also grow cutting flowers because people like to have cutting flowers. You know how expensive those are. So we also devote, some area to cutting flowers. We have a big pollinator area. Some things I let go to seed. And actually, the small plot that we have been re-given is going to be half at least a cutting garden, because it's a little more open to, we're in a community garden. We don't own our space, so there's a lot of people there. So like our squash, winter squash disappeared for like 4 years in a row. So they're now locked up in the orchard. But I think growing flowers and in your vegetable garden is really important, because we have excellent pollination. And I keep showing people, we have fruit because look at all these little bees flying around. So they go hand in hand. They're an integral part.
Do you intermix the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have a separate bed?
No. Yeah. I put marigolds in some places because they help with things. I put zinnias around. It's all real simple, easy to grow. Nothing complicated. Annuals, I let them reseed. And then there's perennial herbs.
In mine, I have separate beds, and I use the marigolds, and I use the zinnias, and I use like flax and cornflowers or bachelor buttons. I use them as a cover crop, and when they're done, I actually chop them up and incorporate them back in the soil to make, to enrich the soil. So they kind of come full circle. And then so I'll grow marigolds in one patch, but it's right, the plots are right next to each other, so they're not intermingled, but they're so close to each other they might as well be. And then I'll chop it up and incorporate in the soil, and the next year maybe I'll grow onions there, to mix and match and stuff. Yeah, I think Sarah's right, and it just looks nicer when you got a little breakup, instead of, and I think it helps pollinate it, the cover crops. It's good for the soil, and it's great for all the bees and the other insects and the butterflies. I got marigolds in there now, and I can see monarchs just all in the marigolds because there's not many other flowers left, and it helps with the pollinators a lot.
So you incorporate the cut flowers into your plot. But I'm thinking you take, your big vegetable, plants and put them into a composted area, or what do you do with them at the end of the season?
I have like 3 plots in my community garden, and the 2 of them are 20 by 30 and one's 20 by 20. And the 20 by 30s, one of them I just have I absolutely separate the rows and the beds. I never step in the beds, and I use the rows because I don't want to have to constantly. So, and then fluff up the soil and in the beds, they're small beds. They're all next to each other, and I just mix and match and turn every year. I have something different, except for where now I'm starting to keep perennials like herbs in certain areas. I'm going to put some rose bushes in there. I got comfrey. I got whatchamacallit, can't think of the name. But anyway, it's a perennial. So I'm mixing and matching. Every year is different. I try to experiment every year. I just the fun part of me for gardening is like do different things every year. It keeps it interesting. So I mix and match everything. And but anyway, getting back to it, yes, I do have some raised beds where I tend to try to use a lot of cover crops, keep the soil very organic, and then I'll grow my peppers in there and my onions in there. And maybe if I grow squash, I'll grow it in there because they like real organic soil. I can show you pictures and stuff of what I do. And I use a lot of cover crops too. Like right now, I'm planting all cover crops. When anything that comes out of the ground, any vegetable comes out of the ground, I replace it with like turnips, radishes, oats, and winter peas. Something to continually have plants there and then I take those cover crops, and when they die in the winter, I just turn them over in the spring. So the soil is constantly being replenished.
So you don't remove the dead, your organic matter?
I do on tomatoes, peppers, because they harbor a lot of diseases. So like the tomatoes are, I yank them out and throw them in the junk, the compost pile that gets taken out with junk. Same with peppers, anything that would hold a disease. But if it's not disease riddled, I mean, beans are the same because beans just are disease riddled, and I get a lot of Mexican bean beetles in there, and I want to get rid of any eggs or any larvae that might be in those plants. I don't want to.
Where do you take them?
We have an area where we just put all the compost, and then the town comes when it fills up, and they just take it and they put it. I don't know where they put it. They must bring it to some place and dump it. But we have places where the gardeners can dump all their waste plants. We used to compost it, but then it's just disease-ridden plants. Nobody wants to take the compost, so the town just takes.
You don't know where they take.
I never asked, actually. Don't ask them. Maybe they take it somewhere. I guess they dump it. I don't know. I don't know if they compost it or if they dump it to a field, or if they just chop it up. And I really don't know. I doubt it goes into the garbage though, because I don't think they're going to pay for to have that cost.
Susan, we most of our plants we remove and we put them outside the garden, and a friend brings over a big old pickup truck, because we have a lot of sunflowers too. It's a huge pile. Some things we turn back in, but most of it we pull up, we take over there, and it goes over to the village of Warwick, who produces this mulchy compost thing. The village also collects all the leaves in the village. So they have brush, leaves, and people's clippings and whatnot. So it goes over there, and they do whatever they do with it and produce this earth-like material, which isn't bad, I buy some more.
When they originally started that, they also were getting horse manure.
Yeah,
and because they added that, it was like real compost. But now it's just like yard waste compost.
Right.
So it's missing that one essential ingredient.
Well, I buy manure to add from Sweetman's farm.
Yeah, I was trying to do that, but it's only 15 bucks a cubic yard, which is a good deal. It's just that you've got to find your own pickup truck to haul it back and forth. And maybe your community garden has access to one that
For the manure?
Well, one of our members.
it's actually composted. It's composted manure. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
Composted. You can buy any amount you want. You don't have to get a pickup truck load, apparently.
oh, so I could go with a few buckets and just
I think so. You have to call them.
okay. I've got his number. I'll do that.
Yeah, but call them because I don't know. One of our members has, well, we had two guys with pickup trucks. Unfortunately, there was a sad story with a sudden passing, but so we're down to one guy with a pickup truck. And he did it for us. He wasn't really thrilled because it was heavy and even the roller didn't work that well. But yeah, go down to Sweetman's, give him a call.
Did they guarantee? Because we had an issue. Maybe I wasn't. There was in the very beginning when they started the garden. They got compost. I'm sorry. They got manure from some farm, and it introduced bindweed into our garden, and we have incredible problems with bindweed in the garden now. It's like it's just basically all through some people's plots. It's just really bad. It's just a taking over plots. It's all through the garden. It's impossible to eradicate. And it all was traced back to the manure.
But
don't
by the
know.
way, I want to point out something here to a couple of the guests who maybe aren't clear about this. At Mark's community garden, individual members of the community have their own little plots or beds or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yes.
But in Sarah's community garden and in Chad's community garden, it's like one big plot and everybody gardens together and they share at the end.
Mhm.
I just want to point that out. It's a little different. I wasn't sure if that came out clear.
We
And
have
there-
control.
There's pros and cons to that. We are, like Michael said, we're little. Everyone rents their plot, and it sometimes causes I don't want to get into the details, but you guys, it's like it's not all for one and one for all. Let's put it that way. Sometimes there's some friction between the people because of issues where somebody's not taking care of their plot well enough, and the weeds are going into your plot, and vice versa. And so the all for one and one for all is good if it can work, but I think ours is just too big for that to work. But having everyone have their own individual plot leads to other issues. So, some people are good neighbors and some people aren't quite good neighbors. And then you got to police it. So, and that leads to other issues. So.
We're coming to the end of time. Any last second questions or comments?
I just want to thank you all for letting us sit in. This has really been interesting.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
You're always welcome.
Brings up a lot of things to think about for us, I think.
If
Thank
you're
you.
ever in Montgomery and you're on 17K by Benedict Park, feel free to come in. The is on the left-hand side. There's a little semi-paved road or partially paved road, and it's up the hill. And if you tell me to meet you there, it's locked up, so you can't get in. But if you're ever there and you want to meet me, tell me I can meet you there and I can show you around. It's
Thank you.
a beautiful plot, beautiful area, and everyone really likes it up there. So that's an open invitation for anyone from all you guys. You're always welcome to come visit and,
Get some onions too.
get some onions.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
again, you're always welcome to join us. So feel free to reach out with any other questions and hopefully you guys can start up your own. But thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. This is great.
All right. I'm glad.
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
And